welcome back to Three's Company Podcast with Tag, Tate, and our special guest, Tyrell. Tag, I'll let you take this little intro away because, to be honest, I just met him, so I'll let you introduce our guest.
All right, yes. For those of you that don't know, this is our cousin Tyrell. I brought Tyrell on, just had a couple of things we wanted to talk about. So if I remember correctly, growing up, you were scouted for baseball or something
Yeah,
along
a
those
couple.
lines?
Yep. So I mean, initially it was just for college. So different colleges contacted me once I got later years of high school, junior, senior years, and uh, basically just um, tried to woo me in their direction to come play for them. Uh, I had about three or four. The one I ended up going to was initially Oregon State, but I was also um, watched by several others in Oregon. Um, Western Oregon was one, JUCO, Len Benton, and Lane Community College. And then actually the one that I kind of kicked myself still to this day that would have been really cool was I was actually contacted by West Point at one point, and they have a baseball team, and that would have been really cool. I think looking back at it, probably should have gave them more of a thought, but I didn't. I kind of wanted to stay in my home state and play baseball there, so that would have been a cool one to do though. But
What position did you play?
I was a pitcher. They said I was too slow to play anything else. The coach for Oregon State, when he came and watched me, they got all their metrics, time everything, they see how fast you are, how hard you throw, all those sorts of things. And I can't remember what my time was down to first, but I was significantly slower than their slowest guy. So there wasn't really an option for me to play in any other positions, but thankfully I could throw it pretty well. So
how hard are you throwing? What was your?
I was a kind of high 80s, very low 90s guy, 91, maybe 92 on the good days. But I was consistently probably at 88, 89. But I felt like I could put the ball where I wanted to, so that was my big strength. Some guys throw 95, 96 miles an hour, and that's awesome. But that was not me. I always wanted that arm, but never quite had it.
There you go.
Nice. So you're obviously you're a little too old. You're older than my oldest brother. So we didn't. I was just saying. So I didn't really get that growing up experience with you. I guess. How good would you say you were at baseball? I guess comparatively, because we've had some pretty good wrestlers in the family. Did you go further on after college, or?
No, I didn't go any farther after college. I had one opportunity. It would have been after my sophomore, junior summer. So I played baseball year round. College starts as soon as you get to school. It goes to about November. You kind of get about not really a break, but a little bit of a break from practices, and then you start up as soon as January hits, and then you're into practices and season. And then most guys played summer baseball all over the country. I stayed primarily in the Northwest. But there's leagues on the East Coast, leagues up in the North. I can't remember where they're at exactly, but just all over the place. And I played it was kind of a newly formed league in the Northwest here, up in Bellingham, and so that went all summer. And one of those summers, our coach was actually a scout for the Brewers at the time, and they needed a couple pitchers, and so he asked if I wanted to. But I turned him down because I was going to a new college that had a pretty good reputation for sending guys on to the next level. And my thought at the time was, if I go here, I have a good showing, a good year, then I can hopefully get drafted. So that was kind of my goal. It never worked out. Had a couple shoulder injuries, and I wasn't quite the prototypical guy. So I was right-handed, didn't throw extremely hard, and that's kind of what seems like from the guys that I have seen go on that they're looking for, kind of the big, tall, 6'4", 6'5". I throw 95 miles an hour. Sometimes I don't know exactly where it's going, but they've got coaches and stuff who can work with those guys and then dial them in and hopefully produce big leaguers out of it. For me, it was a little bit harder because I didn't throw as hard as those guys, so they're kind of looking at the potential, what they could do with that. It's a little harder to make somebody throw, without steroids anyways, make somebody throw 95, 96. So that was my only kind of shot, but I got to play with a lot of really cool guys all over the Northwest, guys that came in from different colleges, played with guys from Florida, guys from Oklahoma, Louisiana, just all over the place, that we'd all get together in the summer and play some baseball, and it was a lot of fun.
Nice. With that, with your height being like 6'5" or pushing it up there, because I always remember walking into our grandma's house, and she has like on the wall like the little towers of how tall.
Yeah.
And being so young, you would just look up and be like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, did you ever think about basketball or one of the sports where they really enjoy the height for players?
Not really. I enjoy playing basketball. It's always fun. It's a great way to get a workout in, go have some fun with friends. But it wasn't really a primary sport for me. I played a little bit in like middle school. I played 2 years in high school, but it was just a fun sport to get me from fall seasons to baseball. Essentially, that was what it was for, to stay in shape, be ready to go. And it's good to play different sports. Don't a lot of kids nowadays, they'll focus on one sport and they'll play baseball all year long, or soccer or football or just whatever all year long. But I have talked to a few scouts, say they really do like the fact that I did play several sports, because it shows just you have some diversity. You're not just completely focused in, and all those other sports, they build on different things. Soccer, basketball, you add to your quickness. Football, if you played football, a little bit more strength-based sport. You go and you bulk up and you get big and strong. So that just kind of, it adds and makes you a more complete individual, more complete athlete, I guess, if you play a few more sports, I think. So definitely was a nice thing that I was able to do, and I would encourage anybody to, don't stick with just one sport. Have fun. There's so many cool ones out there, so many that I never got to play that would have been fun, like lacrosse, those sorts of things that we just didn't have because we were a tiny little school. But it would have been fun to try out and just do something else. I was always playing sports. So
Nice.
I have a question. How is there like a ceiling on pitching? Like you said, you didn't throw as hard as they would have liked. So, like, is that not something you can just bulk up for, or is like because I don't pitch, so I don't know. But do people tend to hit a ceiling of how hard they can pitch?
Yeah, there's a physical ceiling. You can, I think, definitely enhance that a little bit. There's been lots of guys that have used supplements to do that. There's you see it all the time, guys get suspended for using certain things. It's more of the hitters than anything else, but there have been pitchers who maybe are trying to recover from an injury, and so they'll try and use something to come back faster. And there have been a bunch. I got to actually work with a few guys that played in the minors, and there was definitely guys they know that were using some sort of supplements to try and gain that edge. It's a hard sport to make it all the way in. I think they said, at least this was a bunch of years ago, it was like 1% of maybe high school players ever will actually make it to the minors or whatever, and then a small percentage of those guys actually make it up to the big leagues as well. So it's a hard sport to get into. Guys get there and they play for 20, 30 years. So a few guys, one of my coaches, his dad was I believe, in the Mariners system, if I remember right, told the story, but he was behind Edgar Martinez. And so with a guy like that who's now in the Hall of Fame, he's obviously not going to bump him out of his spot. And then if the club does not, trade you away because, maybe you're a good enough player, they want to keep you just in case, you might kind of get stuck and not be able to go anywhere. And so I think that's happened to a few guys who, they just never quite get that chance because whoever's in front of them is really good. They don't get hurt. They play every day, those sorts of things. And so that kind of stuff can happen. I don't think it happens all the time, but sometimes you get stuck behind somebody, and you're kind of, unless they get traded or something, you're kind of you just got to ride it out, or maybe call it a day, hang up the cleats, move on to something else. It's kind of a tough decision. Guys who've been playing baseball for that long to make that choice, but
that's true. When you did metaphorically, or I guess literally, hang up your cleats, did you automatically go to firefighting, or that's where you landed now? How did you get into that?
So it was a couple of years after that I actually got into the firefighting thing. I worked a couple other jobs, and then one of the players that I used to play with here at my last college at LC, he there's actually kind of a string of guys who played at LC and then went on into the fire department. I don't know exactly how it started. Somebody several years before my time, and then we were baseball players. We always just kind of keep in touch. And our department was putting on a test. Anybody could come and test to become a firefighter. And I got to back up just a little bit. So my wife actually kind of encouraged me to get into it because the family that she used to babysit for in high school, who live in Portland, their dad was a firefighter for Portland Fire Department. And she just kind of was like, well, why don't you try? Just give it a shot. What could it hurt? So I went to the local department here. It's a volunteer department, and asked, hey, what can I do to get on and help you guys out? And they kind of pointed me in the right direction. So you got to go get essentially all departments all across the United States. You just basically need an EMT license. And so it's a 3-4 month class. It's really not that expensive, at least at the time I took it. It was like $700 plus a book. You go and you put the time in, go through the class, and then you get affiliated with a department, which I did here in my hometown, Soto County, and then you just kind of start from scratch. You're really green. You work with the other medics that have been on for a while, and you just kind of build from there. And so I'd been doing that for about a year before this testing opportunity came up, which was across the river over in Lewiston, and they have a full-time fire department. And it's kind of a cool setup they got. So they have what we call reserves. And so it's kind of similar to, I guess, kind of military. I kind of think of like the military reserves. You're there, you're ready, you've done all the training, but then you get called up to work in a full-time position, kind of essentially. And so that's what the reserves are. And so I tested, and I was able to go through all their testing and pass, and go through all the training. And so what happens is when a guy goes on vacation, or maybe gets hurt, or calls in sick for a day, then they call one of the reserves, and then we get to go work in their spot, generally on an ambulance. And so we work in that spot for however long the time is. Generally is 24 hours, sometimes shorter, sometimes even longer, up to 72 hours. And and it's just kind of work from there. And then it's just a testing process from there. You can test to become a full-time firefighter, where you're no longer in that reserve role. So you have a full-time job. The reserve is kind of seen as a part-time job. And you can just test and promote up to different positions, and just kind of have to take different roles in the department, and it's a lot of fun. It was a blessing to get into it. It's really cool. I've enjoyed it ever since I got into it. The job's great. The schedule's interesting, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But,
I barely scratched the surface, I guess, right out of my high school year. I did a little bit for like Cal Fire, kind of as like an intern, kind of working for them type stuff. I have a lot of friends that are in Cal Fire now. So I guess, what position are you? Or maybe, I think it works the same, because we had like a firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and then engineer, captain.
yeah, it's so Cal Fire, I'm sure, is obviously a lot bigger than here. We have I think we have 48. Yeah, 48 line guys. We got 16 each day that are on, and then a handful of the reserve firefighters in addition to that. But yeah, so we go firefighter, engineer, captain, battalion chief. Lots of the bigger departments, they'll have even more steps in between those. They'll have lieutenants and things like that. But we're small enough, we don't really need those. But yeah, I'm right now currently a firefighter EMT, so kind of just like the basic intro level firefighter. But we have a seniority, but we're all the same. Then the next step for me would be engineer, and then captain and battalion chief if I ever wanted to move on into those roles. Then if you really wanted to go all the way, you could go up and be the fire chief. I don't think I'd want his job though. I enjoy my job. I like going out and helping people. He spends a lot more time behind a desk than I ever want to. So.
And then, would you say that working in Oregon is more structural firefighting or like wildland? Because a lot of Cal Fire is bushfires and all the California plains, I guess, that catch on fire. I know Oregon recently had some of that.
Yeah, so I'm actually I'm in Washington, like the southeast corner, sort of Washington, right on the Idaho border. We're actually right on the Snake River. We got a couple of rivers that intersect right here, and there's 2 cities on each side. So I live in Clarkston. Lewiston's right on the other side. It's kind of similar to I say like Eugene and Springfield. If you imagine I-5 as being like the river, that's exactly what it is. It's one city on one side, one city on the other, 2 different states. But over here, we've got a decent amount of wildfires, especially during the summer. Not tons of structure fires. We do get them in the winter months generally because people are turning on heaters, space heaters and stuff, and those just accidentally will, catch something on fire. Somebody gets knocked over or something, or a pet or something does something, knocks it over. Those sorts of things. But the majority of our calls are all medical. We have a geriatric population here, so a lot of retirement retirees come out here, and the weather's pretty nice all year round. It gets a little cold in the winter, but for the most part, they can go golfing anytime they want, and so they really like that. And that's the majority of our work, is going and helping out with whatever their need might be.
Yeah, I'd say that was the same too. Like, because firefighting, it sounds all exciting and everything, and it was. I love doing it, but most of all the calls are just your basic, like, medical, or all right, let's take this person's blood pressure, different stuff. But
Yep.
what are some of the big ones, I guess? What are some big stories that you remember, or things that
I don't know. There's lots of different things that happen. There's kind of some things that are funny, just things that people do. I mean, we've been on calls, like literally, you grow up and you read those stories and all the little children's books, going and rescuing someone's cat out of a tree.
Good.
And people will call you for those sorts of things, and it's like, well, have you ever seen a dead cat in a tree? I mean, no, because they will come down. There's no you can call us. That's fine. But they'll come down. If you
Great
just leave them
story.
alone. Yeah, if you leave them alone, and if there's any dogs or kids that are down below it, they'll get out of the tree. They don't want to stay up there. They're agile animals. They'll fall. They'll land on their feet. They'll be just fine. But yeah, we've been to lots of people's homes. They'll little ladies sometimes like we've been to homes to help them find remotes before. Just lost the remote to the TV. Like that's been a call. Or some people have like the electric recliners and stuff, and if they're unable to get back to the plugins come out before, and so those sorts of things. And those are you get to meet a lot of cool people that way, and help them out, and just the simple things. And that's what we're really here for. All the you do hear about bad things that happen, car accidents, drug overdoses, those sorts of things. They do happen. There's nothing glamorous about them. It's unfortunate thing that happens. It's usually bad days for everybody involved, and it's just you do what you're trained to do. You get them to the hospital, and as fast as you can, you get them the help that they need. Sometimes you're successful and things work out. Other times, just the nature of the injuries or how long somebody's been, without any care or anything, that, they can succumb to their injuries or whatever's going on. So that's kind of a bummer, but, it's kind of part of the job, and it's something that you work through, but there's a lot of great guys that, been here for a long time that you can talk to and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this or something. And, there's always somebody there. The fire department's a very close-knit family, and they're all here to help. We're all here to help each other out. So that's one thing that I really, really enjoy about the job.
Yeah, because I guess there was one time where the training environment, I had to go through EMT and stuff as well, to like hands-on application. I remember the first time, for some reason, I had been told, that like when you do CPR, you do it hard and fast, and like you might break bones or whatever. But it was totally different to do it, because it feels so different. That was like the time where I was really like, okay, like this is different or whatever. Is compressing the chest, and they're like, if you're not breaking ribs, like you're doing it wrong, because you have to pump their heart for them.
Yeah, it's completely different from the mannequins that you use in training. Yeah, it's a very, the mannequins are really cool because they're very, they're as lifelike as possible, but you can't obviously completely mimic human body, human anatomy. And yeah, when you do feel, the cartilage cracking and, making some noises and stuff, if you're the first one on scene and you're the first one to start compressions, it's a little bit, the first couple times it happens, it's a little weird, but it's part of, you realize that's what's going to happen. That's natural, and it's your job to make sure that you're giving them the best compressions, is giving them the best chance to have a positive outcome as possible. We actually have now, which is kind of cool. We've just got a new device. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's like
Is it the little machine that does it?
Yeah, it's one of those. So it's looks like a belt that you see like the WWE guys. They hold up that giant belt or whatever, similar to that, but we'll go over the chest and it will compress, and it's actually has some really cool statistics that are really improving people's chances. So like they essentially say when a human is doing compressions on an individual, the percentage that, or their chance of survival, is pretty slim. So you and I are doing compressions on somebody. We can do the best compressions possible, but just because we're pretty limited to just, right over the chest and with just, the palm of our hand, it's as effective as we can be, but it's not as effective as these machines are, which actually completely go around the upper body cavity and compress the entire thing, and actually provide a lot more circulation. It's really cool. I think so. Like, going back to the statistics, I think if you and I were to do it, it's in the neighborhood of like 10-12%, like of actual like circulation. Like we're getting some, but it's really, it's not the best, and the outcome is unfortunately not the best generally. But with these new machines, it's getting up to like the 40s and 50%. Like they're
Wow.
actually perfusing the body enough that, and my numbers might be a little off, but it's like it's amazing. Like the comparison
Impressive.
between yeah, just the technology that's out there that departments are using now is really cool. And so that's just a really awesome thing. You can actually go to someone's home who's had a heart attack or something else has happened, and be able to get this device working and actually have positive outcomes is really cool, because that's what we're always hoping for. It doesn't happen all the time, but this gives us a much better chance. So we're excited about that. It's kind of a new tool in our toolbox, so that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that seems cool. I have a question. What's You're a firefighter. Have you had any hero moments where like you felt like either the hero or like your department were like, what's your hero moment so far?
I I couldn't say that I've had anything like that. It's um yeah, there's times when, I mean, I feel like every time we go and help somebody, that's we're just doing our job. I don't think anybody really thinks of it as like a hero moment. Um we don't have all these giant fires where we jump through a window and we're rescuing babies, or people out of those windows. Unfortunately, it's not quite like that. It's, for the most part, it's going to someone's grandma's home who's fallen down, and she's been there for 24 hours and hasn't been able to get to a phone, or uh, needs help, has a broken hip, those sorts of things, where you can take care of them, get them to a hospital, get them back on their feet if they're not injured, and get them whatever they
Yeah,
need, help them get something to eat, make a sandwich for them. Sometimes they just need to talk to somebody, and you can
right.
spend a few minutes and just chat. That's kind of what everybody is really looking for. I mean, the hero moment things like those are probably like a once in a lifetime things, where maybe you go into someone's home and pull them out before the situation gets worse. But I haven't had anything like that. It's just,
Not yet.
I'd
Not yet.
say, yeah, the more basic stuff, but it's still, we all view it as important. We're there to help our community in whatever way we can.
This
So
this whole family, you guys are all so modest and humble.
I have a funny story. Like it wasn't a hero moment, but like it was just it was kind of funny because there was no danger at all. But there was an attic fire that happened, one of the only fires I got to go on, and the family wasn't currently home at the time. So we go there and we put it out. Everything's fine, but there's a whole lot of smoke, and there's still a lot of smoke in the building. And the mom and these two little girls roll up, and they're so worried about their cats. Like they're freaking out. They want to enter the building. They want to go find their cats. But the fire captain's like, no, like there's smoke, there's toxic particles, like you can't go over there. And we have all of our stuff on. So the engineer is like, hey, Flack, like, can you go look for their cats, like to bring them some solace or whatever? I'm like, okay. So I'm walking around, and like I see a cat and I pick it up just fine. There's another one that like runs off, doesn't want me to pick it up. I go in the building, I'm looking around, I find another cat. So now I got two cats like under my arms, and then I just kind of push the door open with my foot because I don't have my feet anymore. But smoke bellows out of this house like when I open the door, and I walk out with these two cats, and they're like, oh my god, like you saved our cats, and there's no fire. Like there's the ground is
Nice.
all wet and it's all like black and damp and everything. But I walk out and when the smoke came out or whatever, I don't know. I guess it looked like I went into a burning building to save these cats.
Nice. That's good.
Tag is a true hero.
That's awesome.
My hero moment. I spent 7 minutes looking for some cats or whatever.
Funny.
Super
That's
glamorous.
I'm surprised you found those things alive, because cats, when it comes to fires, are not the smartest animals, because they're the ones that go and hide. You know, they go hide under beds and stuff, and if, obviously the smoke is, you know, rolling through the house, even if it's not, the fire isn't in, you know, the room that they're in or whatever. You know, they usually succumb to the toxins and stuff that are in the smoke. So unfortunately, we do find a lot of dead animals in a lot of these fires. You know, cats, dogs, fish, those sorts of things, which is obviously a bummer because they don't generally have anything to do with the fire, and you know, they're just scared and they go and hide. And you know, dogs usually they can find a way out, but cats for some reason they just go hide, and they don't end up usually making it, unfortunately. But
yeah, Cal Fire actually warned us about bunnies. They say they spread the fire because they catch on fire, and they take off, and the grass is so dry that they're just a little running ball of fire, and they'll go catch everything on fire.
That's funny. Yeah, I could see you know, an animal, if it did catch fire, taking off and causing more problems.
Yeah,
that would be a problem. Just a flaming cat comes running.
Yep.
Right in the forest.
That would be funny. That would be funny. Yeah, that's one of our, when we show up to a fire, it's one of the biggest things is, you know, see what fire we have and what's around it. And we definitely got to try and make sure that nothing else catches on fire, you know, keep it to whatever room or home that it is in, and not let any others catch on fire, because that can definitely be a really long day, really bad day. But sometimes the fires are just so big, you know, it takes a little bit to get there. And we are, you know, like a smaller department, so when we have a fire, you know, we have 16 guys show up from our shift. We have a couple of neighboring departments that, depending on where the fire is, you know, they might send 2 or 3 guys. But like, you know, Cal Fire, you know, Portland, Seattle, if there's a fire, tiny little, you know, house structure fire, they're going to have like 75 guys show up, you know, because they have that sort of manpower. And so that's not quite the same here. We got to do things a little bit differently, but we make it work.
Yeah, and so hopefully this was good for anyone. I don't know if anyone's out there thinking about joining the fire service. I know Desmond might think about doing something with fire as soon as he gets out of the Army.
Yeah, I've actually talked to him a little bit. He was asked this last summer. He texted me, asked me a bunch of questions, you know, kind of what he needed to do, and I kind of just tried to point him in the right direction, or at least give him some pointers from what I did. And that's kind of the weird thing between the military and civilian. Like when it comes to like the EMT stuff and the paramedic stuff, like it doesn't really transition over from military to civilian for some weird reason. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me.
In our EMT class, and he struggled a lot with it just because everything was so much different, and there's like rules and different stuff that you had to follow. Like EMTs can't administer adrenaline or something. Like it has to be the paramedic, or just
so
different rules you had to follow.
Yep. Yeah, we have a guy here who was reserve up until just recently. He actually went into nursing, but he was a flight medic in the Marines and got out, wanted to do a firefighting thing. So I mean, he was a paramedic. He knew all the drugs. He knew everything. But technically, according to, you know, the powers that be, he could only be an EMT. He'd have to go and like retake the entire paramedic class, or not the entire thing, but like just kind of do remedial type stuff, which he could have done, but it still would have cost him tons of money to essentially learn all the stuff that he already knew how to do. And like, he was a great paramedic. He knew medicine. He knew, everything that you'd want a paramedic to know. He was great with people, but he just decided he was doing his nursing degree at the same time, and he just decided to go into that. So now he's working in our ICU here at the hospital. But it was just kind of a weird thing that, he has all the knowledge. He probably has more experience coming into this job than he definitely had more experience than I had, being in the military. He'd been doing it for a long time and flying in the helicopters, going and rescuing people, but he comes here and it's just like, glad you got all those certifications and stuff in the military, but they don't count here in the civilian world. So yeah, it's like, yeah. So that's kind of a weird thing. But yeah, with Desmond, I said, the biggest thing is if you get an EMT, that's kind of the big deal. If there's any sort of firefighter, firefighter 1, firefighter 2 stuff that you can accomplish prior to getting out, that'd go a long way. And then it's just putting an application in and getting your kind of choosing the different places that you might want to work. If you wanted to stay in Oregon, Washington, California, wherever, sending out applications to various departments and going and testing for them. There's national testing places that you can go, and it's really cool. You can test one time, and then they'll send your scores to multiple departments, whatever departments you choose, and then they will give you calls based on those test scores and stuff, and invite you for further testing, interviews, those sorts of things.
Wait, is Desmond's in the Army right now, right, Tag?
Yeah.
So, and then you said he was thinking about firefighting, or I missed
when
that.
he gets out, he thinks it'll be a nice, easier life. He's got a wife now. He doesn't want to be gone all the time. He just promoted to sergeant. I saw that on Instagram. So I'm sure at some point we'll have him on here too. It'd be nice to talk to Des, bring him on. So,
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, being home is a big thing. Like with me, most departments were gone from 24 to 48 hours, depending on the schedule. They're kind of weird. Mine's just 24 hours at a time. So actually on Thursday I go back. So I'll be gone 8 o'clock in the morning Thursday till 8 in the morning Friday. I have 24 hours off, and then I repeat the cycle. And I do that for 9 total days. So I work 5 days, and then I get 6 days off, which is pretty cool, which is what I'm in right now. On my days off. And yeah, you do spend a lot of time at home, but you're also a lot of time away from family. So it's probably a little bit better in the Army. You don't get deployed for 6-7 months at a time, however long
there's a nice
that
atmosphere,
is.
though. I had to learn how to cook real fast when I started living there. I was a new guy, so if I stayed there for 2 days or whatever, then they were like, well, you're making all the food. And so, but what that really meant is I learned how to cook meat.
Yeah,
it's meat all the time. So.
Yep, steaks, chickens, lots of bacon. Guys we do BLTs a lot. See what kind of other. Yeah, we got a lot of guys up here hunting stuff, so they'll bring in elk steak, deer steaks, different kinds of burger and stuff. We kind of
wait. So on your 24-hour shifts, you bring all your own meals for that?
Yep, generally. Everybody usually brings kind of their own breakfast.
Okay.
So whatever you want for breakfast, eggs, just whatever. And then we usually kind of get together. Hey, what do we want to do for dinner tonight? Some sort of. It just makes it a little bit cheaper, to go in and get, steaks and potatoes, some veggies. We don't do anything fancy. I know there's probably some departments out there, some guys that are, excellent cooks, and we do have some guys that are really good cooks, but it's for the most part, it's, burgers, it's steak and potatoes, easy pasta, spaghetti, those sorts of things, because there's always that chance that, we're in the middle of cooking something, and then we're gone for 3 hours because we're on a fire. So we don't want to make anything too crazy that will just go bad in the time that we're gone. So
you ever get those? wake up startles, because we have the alarm that goes off or whatever, and then we're supposed to be dressed in like in the engine in like 40 seconds or whatever, so you have all your turnouts and stuff ready to go. And
Yep.
your autopilot, at least the few times where I had like a middle of the sleep call, you don't even remember it. You'll be on your way there and you'll be like, how did I get here? Like, I'm
Yeah,
in the
there's
engine right now, and you don't remember because you just got up and it's throw all the stuff on, strap it on, go, and you're gone in less than 2 minutes or whatever. And then you're like waking up as you're in the car. You're like, oh.
yeah, there's definitely times when you're just like, man, where am I? You know, especially like when you first wake up. Like sometimes, you know, the tones will go off, and I'll wake up, and I move to a lot of different stations, and so sleep in different beds, different places all the time. And you know, there's a wall here today where normally when I wake up I roll this way, and you know, you wake up and you go into the wall like, oh, I'm at the other station, I gotta go this way. You know, it's yeah, I move around a lot, so that does happen sometimes where I get confused. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here. Or you wake up and you know, it's a engine call rather than an ambulance call. It's like, oh nice, I get to go back to sleep. Those guys get to go and help somebody. That's always, even the worst is when I'm at home. Like I'll have, you know, kind of like a phantom tone go off in my head sometimes when I'm sleeping, or just like even when I'm awake, just a sound in the house will go off, and it sounds kind of like a tone, just kind of like it puts you on edge. Like, oh wait, I don't got to go anywhere. I'm at home. I'm okay. So.
Do you guys have a slide or a pole, or do you not have either in your station?
No, we can't have any of those things because it's liability. Yeah, that's no fun.
That's
People get hurt.
The Reading one has the town we grew up had a slide, and I remember for a field trip they took us all there and sent us down the
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
It was great.
Nice.
But I did always hear about people not having the poles, because it's like that same thing happens. You wake up in the middle of the night or whatever, and you're trying to put all your stuff down. That's just a hole in the floor.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, gee.
Too tired
I'm sure
to
there's
focus and grab onto that thing. You just whoop. There goes an ankle.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some places probably in New York, you know, because their departments or their stations and stuff are in, you know, some small buildings. If you've ever seen any of those, you know, like I don't know how they fit the engines in there, but you know, their living quarters are above the engines, and then so they got to get down, and that's, I bet you there's still some of those in use in some places. But yeah, our department says no. We just, it's going to cause somebody to get hurt. There's going to be injuries, and then people are going to be out for a while, and they don't want that. They want us to stay healthy, and I'm okay with that.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right, I think that about wraps it up.
How's it going?
So if anyone else has any further questions, otherwise we'll send it off.
All set. Thought that was going.
All right, well, thanks for coming on, giving us your 2 cents. A little bit
Yeah,
of baseball
thanks
talk,
for having me.
A little bit of firefighting. It was fun.
It was fun. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Nice to talk to you guys. Haven't seen you in
it's been
a while. It's been a while, but maybe we'll catch up again back at Grandma's house or something. Probably next time we'll see you.
Yep, one of the holidays.
Yep, holidays for sure. All right.
All right. This is TCP signing out. Thanks, guys.
See ya.